Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to wait another minute or so and then we'll get started. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Chase, if you're ready, I'll start us off. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for attending today's webinar regarding Country Club Way. My name is Laura Kaifas, and I'm with the Tempe Neighborhood Services Office. I'll be helping out with hosting today's meeting. Chase Wallman, Transportation Planner for the City of Tempe, and Ray Carranza, our Design Consultant with HDR, will be our presenters. Also with us are Tiana Yee, our Public Information Officer, Rebecca Rothman from Public Art, Robert Yabas from Transportation, and I believe we will have a couple others be hopping on shortly. Yes, I see Isaac. Isaac is, he's our Interim Deputy Director for Engineering and Transportation. Okay, so today's meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the website tempe.gov/Country Club Way Path, probably within the next 24 hours or so. Before we get started, some information on how to participate. After the presentation, we'll have a question and answer period. Either type your question in the chat or the Q&A section, and I will read them for the team to answer, or you can raise your hand and I will unmute you so you can ask the question yourself. If your question is related to a specific slide, you may want to jot down the slide number to facilitate the discussion. To raise your hand, find your name on the participant list and hover over it. The hand icon will appear. Click on that. This will put the icon by your name. You can click it off once your question has been answered. If you're on your cell phone, please click on the chat bubble. If there are many raised hands at once, I will attempt to call on people in the order that the question is received. Please note that the comments from today's meeting will not be logged in as official comments. To register an official comment, please take our survey at www.tempe.gov/forum. The comment period is open from now until March 7th. I think that covers it. Over to you, Chase.
Great, thank you, Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chase Wallman, Transportation Planner with the City of Tempe. As Laura said, I'm also joined today by our project manager, Ray Carranza, who's with our design consultant, HDR. I just wanted to thank you all for attending today and giving your feedback and spending your lunch hour with us today. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to briefly just do some project history on the Country Club Way Bike and Ped Improvement Project, as well as go over some of the public input summary that we received in our first round of public meetings. And then I will hand it on over to Ray to go a little bit more in depth on our 30% level design, which we'll be presenting today. So this project is in Southeast Tempe. It connects ASU Research Park, the Western Canal Path, Optimus Park, and Fuller Elementary, as well as Cole Park. And this is a 3.5-mile project starting at Warner Road at ASU Research Park and ending on its northern limit at the US 60 pedestrian bridge. So this project includes a 1-mile stretch of off-street facilities, and that will be the concrete multi-use path and equestrian trail on the west side of ASU Research Park from Warner Road to Elliot. And then north of Elliot, those are where we're going to see the on-street improvements. So that'll be the dedicated bike facilities, such as bike lanes, sharrows, or cycle tracks. In addition to that, we'll be introducing traffic calming elements, improving ADA accessibility in the directional ramps at our crosswalks and our intersections. We'll be providing rest nodes with this project, a new pedestrian signal at Warner Road, as well as the integration of public art. And that public art process is ongoing currently. There's a citizen selection committee that reviewed artist submissions, and it's now narrowed down to 3 artist finalists. So our goal with that was to get a public artist involved early on in this project so that they would be able to integrate a public art piece within the construction of this project. So that citizen selection, artist selection panel will make their selection shortly, and then that artist will hop on board to our project design team and begin to integrate their art within this project. So a little bit more project history. The project was first identified in Tempe's Transportation Master Plan in 2015. In 2016, we brought this project as well as other candidate projects to our Transportation Commission to see what they would recommend for us to move forward to compete for grant funding. And in 2016, they recommended this project move forward to compete within the region for additional grant funding. And we secured a $82,000 grant, which developed our preliminary designs for the project and allowed us to do our first kind of round of public meetings on some conceptual designs and the alignment of the project. And then ultimately, it allowed us to understand the project costs so that we could begin to program the project in the city's capital improvement budget, as well as to seek additional federal grant funding for construction. So we completed that design, and in 2018, we understood the costs and pursued a federal grant, which we were awarded just over $2.6 million for the construction of this project. And that was for this project from the US 60 to Warner Road. We kicked off the final design in 2019, and we were about to go out to the public when the COVID pandemic hit, and we were delayed slightly due to not being able to hold those public meetings. We were finally able to have this virtual platform so that we could start soliciting feedback and move this final design forward. So we held our first round of public meetings in October this past year, and this is our second round of public meetings. So that first round, we solicited feedback on some preliminary design alternatives, and that was at the 15% design level. And now we'll be coming back with our responses to that feedback and how the design got reiterated through all that feedback to this 30% level design today. This is going to be a project corridor flyover. So it'll be an aerial video starting at Warner Road at the ASU Research Park section and moving north. In this video, we'll go over some of the alternatives that we showed to the public in the first round and some of the subsequent preferred alternatives that came out of that. So this first section was the multi-use path and equestrian trail section. We proposed two alternatives for this section, either a multi-use path, which was on the west side of the easement, and the equestrian trail on the east side of the easement, or the flip of that, which was the multi-use path on the east side of the easement, buffered by the equestrian trail and some landscaping. Ultimately, the residents, it was selected to have the multi-use path on the east side of the easement, that square alternative. And the residents in the area that were directly adjacent cited that it would have more of a buffer space between the path users and those private property walls. And the video's currently moving north. This is one of the neighborhood entrances to the ASU Research Park section of the project. And now we're approaching Elliot Road. And it looks like we're having some difficulty here syncing the alternatives, so I apologize for that. This is the Shutterfly Way section where we proposed either a two-way cycle track on the west side of the street or a side path, which would be off-street. Ultimately, the two-way cycle track was chosen for this section. The project's moving north. This is towards Western Canal and more of our neighborhood location. Here, we presented an alternative of either a buffered bike lane section through the removal of the west side parking of Country Club Way from Western Canal to Guadalupe, or standard bike lanes with parking on both sides of the street. Overwhelmingly, the feedback for this section was to pursue the buffered bike lane alternative in this, which would remove that west side parking and allow a buffer for the southbound and northbound lanes in between the travel lanes as well as the parking on the east side of the street. So here we'll continue from Guadalupe Road and working our way north. This is where our available right-of-way that we had gets a lot more constrained throughout this neighborhood in Optimist Park. So we presented two alternatives for this section, and that was a bike lane with parking section from Guadalupe to Watson, or this shared lane alternative, which introduced a buffer in between the bike lane in between the shared lane and the parking. So this is an alternative that we're seeking additional feedback as well for this. And finally, our tightest and most constrained corridor is this Watson to US 60 section. And here we are presenting two alternatives, either a wider shared lane alternative with parking adjacent, or a more narrow shared lane alternative, which introduced a buffer in between both parking lanes. Ultimately, the shared lane with the buffer in between the parking was chosen for this corridor. And we're kind of working our way north still towards baseline. We just passed Fuller Elementary and the Optimist Park and El Paso Path project. And this is the same width that we experienced all the way to the US 60. So this alternative will continue past Baseline Road here and towards the US 60 pedestrian bridge. So with that, beyond the alternatives that we moved forward through the last round of the designs, we also picked out some common threads that we saw as far as the written responses. One of these common themes was the introduction of a pedestrian signal at Warner Road. Some of the comments that we heard in opposition to the proposed pedestrian signal were concerns about hindering turns from Fairfield Lane onto Warner Road. So Fairfield Lane is this red line here on the bottom of the screen. The blue line is our project alignment as well as the alignment of the pedestrian signal. And then this icon on the right represents the closest signal at River Parkway. So there was concerns about the introduction of this pedestrian signal and hindering turns off of Fairfield Lane onto Warner Road. In addition, there were concerns about safety as well as the introduction of these path and equestrian trail users from this project into the private facilities of the Circle G Ranches neighborhood. As far as some of the common themes in support of the pedestrian signal, this was citing a lack of connectivity to the project from neighborhoods south of Warner Road. This signal here at River Parkway is currently the only signalized crossing in between McClintock Drive and Price Road 101 along Warner Road. So that was cited as well as an increase in safety and comfort for pedestrian and bicyclists to cross Warner Road. So seeing these comments for the pedestrian signal, it was obvious that we needed to review more and better understand what the impacts would be by introducing this pedestrian signal and have the traffic engineering team, not only from HDR, but also with the city and our city traffic engineer to understand what the impacts would be from this pedestrian signal, as well as go a little bit deeper into these concerns. So one of the things we did was collect some more data, especially surrounding the concern about turning movements onto Warner Road. So this is something that we wanted to confirm that our original data collection that we conducted in the beginning of the project still reflected what the existing conditions were today. And this was assuming, us assuming as well that we're in this area of Tempe observing about a 30% reduction in travel, in the travel counts for this section of South Tempe. So we went out there in the AM and PM peak hours on 4 days, and these numbers are representing the turning movement counts that we observed during those peak hours per hour of those AM and PM times. So that ranged from 17 to 28 per hour, the lowest being the left turn off of Fairfield onto Warner Road going westbound. And some of the highest that we saw were the eastbound Warner Road traffic turning right onto Fairfield Lane. So this was data that we wanted to confirm as well when we went back and studied the impacts of this pedestrian signal with the traffic engineering team. So with that, this is an image of the proposed alignment of the pedestrian signal and some of the additional traffic engineering review for some of the specific concerns I'll go over now. The first was, again, that turning movement from Fairfield and the concern that it would be hindered through this pedestrian signal. Through the traffic engineering review, it was determined that the turning movements from Fairfield would actually benefit from this signal, and that was due to the fact that larger gaps would be created to help the turning movement onto Warner. So basically, this pedestrian signal is only activated when a pedestrian's there to actuate the signal, to press the button. Otherwise, the signal is not turned on or stopping traffic. Once it does, it will stop traffic both eastbound and westbound to allow for the bicyclists and pedestrians to cross Warner Road north and south. And this phase would be about 30 seconds. So with that signal turned on, it would create a larger gap because this eastbound traffic would be stopped here before the signal, allowing this larger gap here at Fairfield Lane. In addition, the traffic engineering review determined that it would be you would have a safety benefit, which was also created by that larger gap, and that is providing not only the dedicated phase for pedestrians and bicyclists to cross Warner Road without vehicular traffic or having that vehicular traffic stop, but also that it would remove a potential conflict point of eastbound traffic interacting with those trying to make turning movements off of Fairfield Lane. Potential hazard or safety concern that was raised was about introducing a new traffic control device. So with any of our new pedestrian signals or any traffic control change, as part of this project, we would be placing signage prior to the signal being turned on along the roadway, alerting to the new traffic control device, and so that we could better acclimate the vehicles and the users of the roadway that a traffic signal change has occurred ahead, and hopefully get them acclimated before the actual signal is turned on. And that's what we would do a few weeks prior to the actual turn on of the signal. There was concerns about traffic or project users from the path going into the private facilities in Circle G, and that was likely a miscommunication on the actual scope of this project and where our improvements are. So I just wanted to clarify that as well. So this project, what you see here is the south extent of this project. We are not having any improvements through this project that go east of this pedestrian signal location or south of Warner Road. So there will be no wayfinding signage south of Warner Road that directs users to the project or towards Fairfield Lane. And the improvements here that you see in the orange is the widening of the sidewalk and ramp improvements going westbound towards Kenwood Lane. So this project will not have any actual physical improvements or wayfinding signage directing users towards Fairfield Lane. In addition, we were asked to explore if any other alternative locations were feasible with this project. And we're currently studying if Kenwood Lane is a feasible alternative. So that's still being evaluated by the traffic engineering team. But it is thought that signal at Kenwood Lane may not meet the warrants for a traffic signal. So with that, we are moving forward the alternative that is shown here with the pedestrian signal just east of Kenwood Lane with our further evaluation. Some other common themes that we observed through the written comments were the concern for removal of mature trees within the ASU Research Park section. And this was the established trees that are on the east end primarily of this 40-foot easement that we'll be utilizing with this project. So with that, we went back and we conducted a tree inventory to understand what the tree health were out there of these trees, the estimate of their caliper size, the type of trees they were, and then ultimately determining their location and its relation to the proposed improvements of this path project. So with that, we highlighted these in the red icons, and all these materials are also available online, so you could zoom in specifically and see which trees would be impacted through this project, again, by those red symbols. The green symbols are the proposed new trees for the project. So With this tree inventory, we understood that it would cause the removal or relocation of 36 existing trees that would be in conflict with this project, which will look to either remove or relocate or remove with this project. But with that, we will also be specifying 158 new projects along this section between Elliot and Warner Road. And finally, there was a common theme as far as the rest node location, site specifically, the type of seating that we were proposing at the rest nodes, as well as a concern for lighting within the rest nodes. So Ray will get into as far as how we responded to some of those comments, introducing more lighting, but most importantly, after talking to some of the property owners that were directly adjacent to these proposed rest nodes locations, we adjusted the locations of these rest nodes so that they were no longer adjacent to any private property wall. So this is a zoom in example here of one of the proposed locations, which is just south of Elliot Road, which has this buffer space in between the wall. And then this wall to the left is actually an alley wall. And then past that alley is where the private property walls are. So with that, we adjusted the location so that there was no rest node that was directly adjacent to any private property wall with the project. And then we improved the lighting as well as adjusted the seating so that it was more individualized style seating instead of your longer seat wall. So in that previous feedback, just to summarize, we asked the public for their feedback on these alternatives. And with that, we're left with these alternatives moving forward in this 30% level design. So the Watson to US 60 section was the shared lane with a buffer in between the parking and that shared lane. For the Guadalupe to Watson Drive, this is where we'll be seeking additional feedback on two alternatives still. And again, that was a standard bike lane with parking or a shared lane with a buffer in between the parking. The Western Canal to Guadalupe section, the preferred alternative was buffered bike lanes with the removal of the west side parking along Country Club Way and maintaining the east side of parking. The Elliot Road to Western Canal section, the cycle track was the preferred alternative in the last feedback, but we also introduced, after reviewing with the traffic engineering team, an additional alternative that we would like to get feedback on, and that is a buffered bike lane alternative. And then finally, the Warner Road to Elliot Road section, the preferred alternative moving forward was having the equestrian path on the west side of the easement and the concrete multi-use path on the east side of the easement along ASU Research Park. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Ray Carranza, and he will discuss our 30% design.
Thank you, Chase. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ray Carranza with HDR, the project manager for this project on the design side. So what I'm going to go through now is just the 30% design. Typically, if we weren't doing this virtually, we would have a nice big color row plot with our 30% design on it and kind of point things out as we move along. But here in the virtual world, we have videos of the different segments, the 5 different segments that Chase mentioned. So we'll run through those videos, and as we go through them, I'll point out some of the major design features that we're moving forward with. Next slide, please. So here, before we start the video, this is the first segment from Warner to Elliot. What we have here is an aerial. I believe this was taken in 2019. So what we've done is we've taken our 30% design and kind of overlaid it over this aerial. What you see here in the colored shapes is our improvements that we're currently showing at the 30% design level. Here in orange, we show the ramp reconstructions, sidewalk improvements. What you see there in the light blue is our multi-use path, and then the dark blue is our equestrian path. And then as we move north from this section, you'll see the yellow circle there. That's That's one of our shade nodes right there north of Warner. And then the green circles are the trees. And but as we move forward, I'll point out some of the areas where we're kind of showing trees that would be impacted, either relocated or removed. Go ahead and start the video, please. So here at Warner, they're showing have that pedestrian signal. There's one of the trees designated as being removed or relocated. So there's 36 of them between this Warner and Elliot segment. As we move further north, there's two community connection points, one at Buena Vista and then one at Citation. Those connection points will remain. We're not planning to make any modifications to those areas other than looking at the existing bollards and making them ADA compliant to kind of increase the spacing between them. Here's the Citation connection point, and then just north of there you can see the second node structure adjacent to the alleyway. And then as we move north to Elliot Road, we have our third shade node structure just on the south side of Elliot. And here at Elliot, they just recently completed some signal improvements here as part of the Discovery Business Campus development. We're not planning to make any modifications to those signals, but we will be doing some ramp reconstruction or construct a new sidewalk ramp on that west leg of Elliott Road to provide connectivity to the west side of Shutterfly Lake for bicyclists and pedestrians. Next slide, please. So here's the Elliott to Western Canal segment. So as Chase mentioned, we are looking at two different striping options. First, we'll look at the one on the left side. So on this left side alternative is the buffered bike lane alternative. So we're showing bike lanes on both sides with one lane of traffic. Existing conditions in this area, there's currently no parking allowed. So in both these options, we're not showing any, we're maintaining that and not allowing parking. Let's go ahead and start the video. So here's that first alternative where we're looking at the buffered bike lane in both directions. There's a 40-foot wide roadway existing today. And as we approach, this is Shutterfly Way, as we approach north, it ends at a cul-de-sac. And then we're planning to reconstruct the sidewalk just on the north side of that cul-de-sac to promote north-south movement of bicyclists. And then on the right side here, this is the option that was presented previously at the first round of public meetings. This is the cycle track. So we have a two-way cycle track on the west side of Shutterfly Way, and then the lanes of traffic northbound, southbound on the east side. The cycle track will separate the pedestrians and the bicyclists by putting the bicyclists on the street level, and the bike lanes and the travel lanes are separated by a buffer. And then as we move north towards Elliott, we would construct the sidewalk ramp that follows that same alignment of the cycle track, so to provide that connectivity north-south to the Elliott and then down into the Elliott to Warner segment for the multi-use path. So here we are. This is the Western Canal to Guadalupe segment. So from the cul-de-sac to Western Canal, there's an existing 12-foot multi-use path. So that existing multi-use path will remain. The scope of this project is not planning to make any modifications to that. And then as we head north to Western Canal, as you see here, there's some planned improvements on the that's being done on a separate project that's going to improve the Western Canal path in this area. That project is introducing some another shade node, some sidewalk improvements, and ramp improvements, and there's also going to be some landscaping and ingrading that's going to be done. So we're not making any modifications to that portion of the project, and then our improvements pick up just north of Diamond Drive there. So let's roll the video, please. So between Western Canal and Guadalupe, just based on public feedback, this is the option that we're going. This is the alternative that we're going with. So we have the buffered bike lane on the west side. On the east side, we have the buffered bike lane with the 1 lane of parking. Along this segment, there's privacy walls on both sides and no existing driveways that connect to Country Club Way, this location. And then you see here, this is south of Guadalupe Road intersection. We have a couple of raised medians. So we're using these as traffic calming measures. Throughout the corridor, we try to identify locations, look for opportunities to introduce traffic calming measures in the form of a raised median or curb extension. So this is one of the areas where we've identified an area where we can introduce traffic calming measures as we approach Guadalupe Road. Next slide, please. So this is Guadalupe to Watson. So here, this is the other area where we're looking at 2 different striping options. The one on the left is the shared lane. Excuse me, the shared lane with buffers, and then on the right we have the bike lane with parking. Both options will have will have parking allowed on street, and then there's also existing driveway facilities that connect to along the roadway. Also along this section, there's existing speed humps. Those will remain as a traffic calming measure, and it's for the striping improvements, we just plan to kind of refresh those existing speed hump stripes. And our next segment is the Watson to US 60, and this segment is our most narrow section at 40-foot wide, curb to curb. Let's roll the video, please. So because of the tight section, what we're moving forward with here, and with public input from the previous public meeting, we're going with shared lanes, buffered with parking on both sides. So along this segment, we have there's on-street parking that's currently allowed today, so that will remain. And then there's existing private driveways that connect to this roadway. And then as we approach Baseline Road, we have south leg and the north leg. We have introduced some traffic calming measures. South of the south leg of Baseline, we'll have curb extensions, which you kind of see here. And then north of Baseline Road, we'll have a raised median. And Baseline Road, and also at Guadalupe Road, we are going to be proposing some new reconstructed traffic signals that conform to current standards. Looking at the pedestrian push buttons to be compliant, and replacing the single ramps with directional ramps. So that's going to happen. Those intersection improvements going to happen at Baseline and also at at Guadalupe. And here we just passed Carson Drive in Cole Park, where we're introducing our fourth shade node structure. And then here we are at the end of the north termini at the US 60 pedestrian bridge. Next slide, please. So now we're going to go into kind of the shade node concepts. So those areas that we identified in the map that were in yellow. So this is kind of what it would look like. So we're looking at a kind of a rigid shade structure for the roof area. In general, the height of the shade structure would be 14 foot high. The width of it will be around 25 feet. And then some of the amenities that we're looking at is, you know, the seating. You can't see it here, but I think we have another picture that shows the better picture of the seating. So now that's going to be individualized. There's going to be landscaping around there. There's going to be lighting, yeah, a lot of different lighting concepts, bike racks, drinking fountains, so a lot of different amenities. And as far as like landscaping, so what we showed in that video was more of a concept, but this is like a 300-foot segment, what you see here on the right, on the left side. This is kind of like a 300-foot segment of that portion between Warner and Elliot. It gives you more detail of what the landscape design will look like. So we're looking at trees along both sides of the corridor, along that 40-foot public utility easement. The trees will be made up of, will be kind of the low water use variety, native to the area. And we're planning to put as many trees as possible, you know, within that segment to kind of provide shade and, you know, give a more like aesthetic feel as you go through that segment. And here's a good picture of the individual seating. So Chase mentioned some of the feedback we got was, you know, they to kind of move away from the bench seating to more individualized. So this kind of gives you a good picture of what we're kind of looking at for that individualized seating under the shade node structure.
And I would just add too, as a quick note, that we're looking for feedback here on some of the amenities that we're providing. So what are shown is not really an A or a B, and we're really looking for feedback about the vertical panels versus, you know, having the water harvesting or low impact development, plants in the middle, the lighting. So these are just concepts shown. The design may change, especially with depending on the public art integration into the project. So I wouldn't look closely at the colors that are being proposed, but more so of the structure and some of the amenities. And we're really looking for feedback about some other amenities that we can add if we're missing anything, or what amenities are liked or disliked about what some of these concepts that are being proposed. And yeah, here's that side-by-side comparison of some of the concepts that we've come up with.
And then this area is this rendering is kind of looking south on between that Warner and Elliot segment. You kind of see the existing privacy wall there on the right side, and then you have the equestrian path, and then the multi-use path as you move further to the left side there of that rendering. So kind of give you a perspective of which way you're looking at. And with that, I'll toss it over to you, Chase.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. So now I'll just quickly go over our next steps. So we, at our first round of public meetings, we collected that feedback, obviously, as well as through a few different city commissions, including the Transportation Commission. and Sustainability Commission to get their feedback. So this is our second round of public meetings. We had held one on Saturday as well, and our public comment period for this round of public meetings ends on March 7th. We'll take all that feedback between the commissions, the internal city review through all the various city departments, as well as the public feedback from this round, and we'll reiterate the design and develop the 60% level design. From there, we anticipate finishing up the final plans, specs, and estimates in the late part of this year, and hope to be able to advertise the project and begin construction in the early part of 2022. So again, that survey is available at www.tempe.gov/forum. I know the videos were a little bit laggy, so it may be difficult to view some of the alternatives, but all these public materials, including the materials from the first round of public meetings, are available at the project website, which is tempe.gov/countryclubwaypath. And that way you'll be able to zoom in a little bit closer to all the materials that we presented today. And with that, on the bottom right is my contact information. If you have any additional questions on the project beyond the Q&A period that we're about to have, feel free to reach out and be happy to answer any questions. And just wanted to take the opportunity again to thank you for participating and giving your feedback during your lunch hour today. And with that, I'll hand it off to Laura.
Thanks, Chase. Okay, we've got quite a few, so I'm going to try and go through these in the order received, but be patient with me here. Okay, David asks, what is the goal of the rest nodes? Are they meant to be a destination, a place someone would walk to and sit and read a book, or are they meant to be a place to rest for just a minute or two during a walk? And in addition to that, he had a follow-up. I'm curious why rest nodes on all city projects never seem to have seating with backs.
This is Ray. I can try to answer that. So the rest nodes is I think for this project, it's kind of an opportunity for people to recover and rest. Especially in that Warner to Elliot segment. It's I don't know if you can say if it's there for long term seating, but I mean it's really just when it gets hot here in Arizona, it's a nice area to kind of use that have a place for shade and kind of rest, and and that's where we're looking at feedback on for the public what kind of amenities they want to see there. Like it's drinking fountains is something like we feel like the public could benefit in that area, but that's kind of the feedback we're looking at. It's an opportunity for people to rest and recover. But if the public feels like they want other amenities, that's the kind of input we want to get from this meeting.
Yeah, and I would say that we'd definitely explore having the seating introduce some kind of back support element as well. That's not something that we explored yet, so we could definitely explore that as we reiterate this design moving forward. But I definitely want to make this a comfortable space with shade for rest, like Ray noted.
Okay, so our next question comes from Joy. For Western Canal to the Guadalupe portion, is the parking lane on the west side of the road?
Sorry, what did you say, from Western Canal to Guadalupe?
Yes.
The parking lane is maintained on the east side of Country Club Way.
Okay, and from Anne, her comment is, this is very bike centric. Doesn't seem like pedestrians are a priority. Why is that? Are any low impact features going to be used? And what trees will be added in other sections where trees weren't mentioned to help the city? Yeah,
and thank you for that comment. And there are a lot of pedestrian improvements, and it may have been overshadowed by the mentions of the bicycle improvements, but we'll be upgrading all of the ramps for ADA accessibility, as well as any signal improvement that's needed for like the pedestrian buttons, for example. The path itself, we're going to introduce. Obviously, we're gonna propose to introduce a lot of shade, and this is a shared path with pedestrians and bicyclists, as well as the adjacent equestrian trail, which would be that softer surface material. And then obviously we would hope that pedestrians would utilize these rest nodes as well with the project. And as far as the landscaping, I think we have Jason Harrington on, who is a landscape architect with Harrington Planning and Design. That's a part of the HDR team, and he could speak to some of the intent with the landscaping. The majority of the landscaping is going to be introduced in between this Elliot and Warner section along ASU Research Park. This is where we have the most opportunity, given the right-of-way constraints that we have, primarily for the project north. But one area beyond that we'll be looking for additional landscaping would be in that Cole Park area, as well as we'll see if there's opportunity as well within those traffic calming elements that were called out, like the medians and the curb extensions that were further north of Elliot, to be able to integrate landscaping into those. And then the LID, and that's something that we heard as well through our sustainability commission. So it's something that we have proposed here that you could kind of see conceptually within our rest nodes that we want to incorporate, but we'll be looking throughout the project corridor, especially at those traffic calming elements or within other areas of this landscaping buffers that we have, if we can incorporate more of that water harvesting and LID improvements. Jason, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything additional as far as the type of trees.
Yeah, we're using low water use plant material from the ADWR plant recommendation list for the greater Phoenix area. We've also been collaborating with the City of Tempe's arborist on staff to make sure we select materials that are low maintenance as well as low water use. Also working with ASU Research Park arborist to help identify plant materials so we can synchronize with adjacent land uses at the ASU Research Park. All of our plants will provide shade and comfort and a cooling climate where it's possible to put in landscaping.
Okay, great. I'm going to combine a couple of these that are a little bit similar. These are in relative to Shutterfly Way. One of the folks on here asks, are you going to be considering any traffic calming measures? They say that the employees fly down that half-mile stretch from the cul-de-sac to Elliot. And then also people are wondering if there is going to be landscaping in that section, in particular trees along Shutterfly.
I can answer that one. As far as traffic calming measures, none are currently being explored right now. We are looking at doing providing delineators. If we go with the cycle track option, to have delineators, in addition to the buffers that separate the bicyclists and the travel lanes. But yeah, please provide your input. That might be something we can take a look at. It is a wider section at 48 feet. So there might be some opportunities that we can explore in that area. As far as landscaping, there is an existing sidewalk between on both sides. And at this point, we're not planning to do any landscaping in that area. It's kind of keeping what's out there today.
Okay, we have another question from Rob. Are there cameras planned on the project? It's from two folks, as well as security cameras at the rest nodes.
There's not at this point. I mean, at the traffic signals, we're looking at upgrading the equipment to video detection. Currently, there's loop detectors out there, and those signals will be upgraded to have video detection. But other than that, not currently exploring any other like video or surveillance cameras around the corridor.
Thank you. Another one, will the Guadalupe and Elliot pedestrian signals be similar to the current pedestrian signal at Western Canal and McClintock, in parentheses, which works really well.
The signal at Elliot would be a full, it's the one that's out there currently that we may need to adjust. So that's a full traffic signal that's currently there, which vehicles will utilize as well. The one on Warner would be a pedestrian signal, not like the one that's on Western Canal. It would be most similar to what we just put in the Highline Canal section, or Kyrene Canal, if you're familiar. So that's not the hawk signal. It's not the red flashing lights. It would be a pedestrian signal that stops traffic on both sides without the red foot. So we'll have a full signal phase dedicated to the pedestrians going north-south. So it's a little bit different than that Western Canal, and would be most similar to what you would see on the Highline Canal or Kyrene Canal.
Okay, another one from the chat before I jump down to the Q&A. Will there be water available at the rest areas?
Yeah, that's one of the amenities that we'll be looking at the rest node locations to provide drinking fountains there. And we received some additional comments as well as providing a drinking fountain, one of the multi-use ones for dogs or pets as well. So that's something that we're going to explore moving forward within these rest node locations.
So that answers one from Chris. I have one from Jana. ADA friendly, police patrol anticipated, studies of safety for car and bike, best options, comparisons with other cities. Good job so far.
Thank you for that feedback.
I think she's also asking, police patrol, is that anticipated?
Additional police patrol? I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question from the transportation perspective. I think it's obviously maintained through the transportation department, and will be added. I believe it would be patrolled similarly to how Western Canal pathway or the Highline Canal path are being patrolled. So I would assume a similar patrol schedule as that, but probably not the best person to answer that as far as representing what the police department would do.
We can look into that and
Yeah.
get to you with an email. Okay, from Duke, will the bike lanes be painted? How are bike lanes and buffer areas differentiated?
We'll be looking, the buffer spaces will be striped, and so there will be some diagonal striping as well. That's your white striping, the thicker white striping that you've probably seen in some of the other buffered bike lanes that we have in the city. And we're exploring further delineation as well. If anything physical, it's something that we need to review still with our traffic engineering department and our city traffic engineer. If we could put anything physical, such as having those delineators or even something more than that. And beyond that, we'll also be looking for implementing green thermoplastic at some of the arterial entrances, like where Shutterfly meets Elliot Road, so we'll be exploring additional striping as well if it's appropriate with the project. But at a minimum, it will have the striping with the thicker lines to represent the buffer space along those areas, as well as having the green thermoplastic that you've seen probably in some of those other bike lanes, like on Mill Avenue or University previously.
Thanks, Chase. Here's another one from Chris. If using the two-way cycle track between Elliot and the Western Canal, how are northbound cyclists to get to the cycle track on the west side of the road? Will the crosswalk only be on the west side?
Ray, do you want to talk about the Elliot improvements?
Yeah, so like if I'm understanding the question right, there's a, if we go with the cycle track option, there will be a designated striping lane. So if you can imagine the just extending that alignment, that cycle track further south, there'll be a like a sidewalk ramp that's in line with that cycle track. So that will provide the connection point between the cycle track and the south curb of Elliot. Correct. Yeah.
Thanks, Ray. Okay, another one from Joy. Will shade be provided at or near the traffic signals for those waiting for the green phase?
Sorry, I went a little too aggressive here on the PowerPoint progression. We'll look as far as available right away. Unfortunately, there's a lot of those street entrances areas where we don't have a lot of available right away to fit in additional trees, but we'll look for every opportunity, especially around those signals if there's enough space to add additional landscaping. Unfortunately, a lot of those areas are constrained with available right away.
And we have another one. What is the ongoing maintenance plan?
The maintenance plan, it's programmed through the city's pathway capital maintenance budget through the CIP process. So before we pursue these projects and budget into the CIP, we have a cost for what we experience with this path maintenance to allocate in the budget and in the CIP for continued maintenance of these projects. So this will be is already programmed in the city's pathway capital maintenance fund through the CIP.
Thank you on that one. Another one from Ann, and Ann, this is regarding amenities. This is something you'd want to put in the survey response, but she says, can we get dog poop bag dispensers along the route?
Yeah, that's something we haven't received feedback yet for, so we'll definitely explore that, including that into this project as well.
Okay. For some reason it's not wanting to scroll up. I feel like I have a few older questions that maybe have not. Here we go. I think you answered this one. Will there be bicycle detection at the traffic signals?
This is right. Yeah, there'd be video detection, but yeah, I don't believe it'll be detecting like it's there to detect bicyclists. It's there to kind of to monitor the traffic.
Okay, here's one from Jay. Should the research park light be somehow synced with the pedestrian light on Warner? Will people giddy up on that stretch eastbound to the freeway?
I think we have our city traffic engineer, Kathy Hollow, in this, hopefully. Kathy, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the pedestrian signals in the city run what we say run free, so that they only are activated when the button is pushed. And in order to make them somewhat responsive to the press of the button, they are not synchronized with the adjacent signals. And it seems to work well at the other pedestrian crossings that we have, mostly because it's not a constant call. So it only happens periodically as people happen to walk up. So that's how we would intend to operate it right now.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, here's one from that I missed earlier. Looks like parking for the Western Canal to Guadalupe is only on west side of the street. Will communal mailboxes continue to be on the east side?
The parking is maintained on the east side of Country Club Way in this section, so it calls for the removal of the west side parking from Western Canal to the Guadalupe section. So working from the west to the east, you have the bike lane adjacent to the curb, then you have a buffer space, then you have your southbound travel lane, then your northbound travel lane, and then you'll have another buffer, the northbound bike lane, another buffer, and then the parking against the east curb.
Does that answer it for you? I don't see any hands up. Anybody looking to have another question asked? Okay, here's another one. Anticipated increased use could lead to more parking congestion on the streets with access to the paths. I guess that's more of a comment. Anyone want to take that one on? Parking congestion on the streets with access?
Well, it's the, yeah, like when I went through the videos, I kind of noted the segments that had existing on-site parking. So for the striping options that we're moving forward with, we are still maintaining that the existing on-site parking. So we wouldn't be changing that or adding any on-site parking where there wasn't any today.
Yeah, and we could review that as well throughout with our city traffic engineering team as well. But there is a lot of capacity for parking currently today that's not well utilized in this section from Western Canal to Guadalupe. So we are still maintaining that east side of parking as well.
Any other questions? Well, you have had a lot of good questions and I think some pretty decent answers. If you have something that comes up later in the day, you think about it, please feel free to email Chase or myself and we'll get it to the appropriate person. We're hoping you'll all go and take the survey right after this at tempe.gov/forum. And last call for any questions. If not, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Have a good rest of your day.